Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video, I'm going to discuss, as I promised, although it wasn't quite as I expected, Boris Johnson's life after Parliament, as he seems to have taken up the role of pharmaceutical salesman in a hyped-up new career in the Daily Mail. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. Right, another Boris Johnson day again today, I'm afraid. See, one is much more serious than the other. It looks like Boris Johnson has pulled a bit of a Donald Trump with regards to national security, but that's later. I'm going to kick off with the more whimsical one because I not only find the whole thing hilarious, but it speaks to just how useless Boris Johnson is and how ridiculous people are to keep putting their faith in him. So I said yesterday, Boris Johnson was going to be writing articles for the Daily Mail for what is reported to be a high six-figure salary. Basically, we can assume that Johnson is being paid in the region of about £15,000 per article here, maybe more. And just to explain the build-up, because this is absolutely priceless. The Daily Mail, they first of all teased their new star signing in yesterday's paper. You know, it was on the front page of yesterday's paper, but, you know, it was a silhouette of him. Oh, who could it be? Who do you think it's going to be? Then the big reveal. Yes, some of you were right. What do you mean some of us were right? Some people thought it was someone other than Boris Johnson. So some of you were right. It's Boris Johnson. He was being described. So they had the teaser on the front page. I need to build up this up because it's brilliant. They had the teaser on the front page of yesterday's newspaper, the physical newspaper. Then later on, an article on their online site, which was hyping it up. Yes, you were all right, Boris Johnson. And they were describing him as one of the wittiest writers, somewhat erudite, someone who would be required reading. This series of articles would be required reading in Westminster and around the world. And I have to emphasise that the Mail were hyping the hell out of this. And then the launch of his first article. So it came on the digital version last night. And it's in the newspaper today. And was he going to be talking about Ukraine or China or the United States? You know, was he going to be talking about geopolitics? Would it be about the economy? You know, a way to undermine Rishi Sunak maybe. Would it be a candid reveal of what was going on in Downing Street during some critical emergency where no doubt he embellished his own role in it? Would it be just, you know, as I expected, a rant about how mean everyone was being? No. It was about how he's a fan of nibbling on cheese and Spanish sausages and how he tried using diet medication to deal with it. Right then, absolutely essential reading for Westminster. I can see that now, yes. I should really talk about that, shouldn't I? Upon publication, social media, of course, was full of ridicule for his first effort. Some were ridiculing Boris Johnson, who had decided to write about like diet injections, drug injections for appetite suppressants. Some had ridiculed Paul Dacre, who was already having to make cost savings at the Mail. It's not going very well. But he's now discovered that he was paying Boris Johnson perhaps close to £1 million a year to write any old tat about what he gets up to at home. And I wonder how the subject even came about. Because I expected him, I think people expected him to use the platform to wage a war against his old party. I certainly did. I think Paul Dacre did as well. After all, I can see how Boris Johnson ranting and raving will push a few extra copies of the Mail. I can totally see the attraction to the gammons. I can see how I can see the potential business plan there. I can see how it could be worth maybe £1 million, you know, to get Boris Johnson on board, to stoke a civil war in the Tory party. Totally get that. But this advert for diet injections, I'm not sure what Dacre was expecting. You know, this was Boris Johnson behaving more like a social media influencer in the fashion space. You know, it's like, oh yeah, no. I used to love the old Spanish sausages and cheese. Oh, it's terrible, it's terrible, it's terrible. And then I found out about this like new drug. You know, and I wonder if Dacre just asked him to write about himself, write about yourself. You know, thinking his vanity would turn it into rage, because that's what sells, particularly in something like the Daily Mail. But, you know, let's be honest, media platforms in general, controversy sells, controversy attracts. You know, so Boris Johnson, absolute eye of the storm of controversy. Get him on the paper. Just let him write whatever. It'll be gold dust. I mean, I remember years ago, slight tangent, Sir Michael Parkinson, who was formerly a very popular talk show host in the UK. And he was like friends with Billy Connolly, and he would talk about how television producers just didn't know how to use Billy Connolly, how they would say, oh, we're not really sure what vehicle to use for him. And he would say to them, Billy Connolly is the vehicle. Just let him do stuff. Maybe Dacre thinks the same of Johnson. Just let him do stuff. It would be brilliant. But Boris Johnson needs direction. I mean, let's look at Johnson's character. Let's look at an aspect of his character. He's an incredibly vain and lazy man who thinks the world owes him a living. Remember, back when he was writing for the Telegraph for £250,000 a year, he thought that was chicken feed. He's a man who 5 years ago or so thought £250,000 a year was chicken feed. A man who complained about his prime ministerial salary. I mean, that's less than chicken feed. This is not someone who's going to come up with an insightful political piece for a mere £1 million. He's getting $1 million just to go and give a speech to a load of drunk businessmen in America. So he doesn't value £1 million. I mean, that's for a whole year's work. That's for like one article a week. That's loads of speeches, effectively. That's 52 speeches, isn't it? Short speeches, but that's 52 after dinner talks. Of course, he's not going to place much value on it. He's not going to give his A material unless you direct him, because he doesn't think £1 million or whatever it is, £750,000 or something, might be $1 million actually. He doesn't think it's worth very much. You know, so whatever Dacre asked him to do was clearly lacking in guidance, because I guarantee Dacre did not want this. I am quite sure of that. He did not ask him to write a piece advertising diet medication. Oh, and for those wondering how on earth Boris Johnson has any hope of plugging diet medication, he did stress that it didn't work for him. But he believes it'll work for millions of others. Imagine that from this fashion influencer that he's obviously trying to become now. Oh, yeah, so I reviewed this product and it was an absolute load of crap. But I'm sure it's going to work for you guys. You know, check out my description below for the affiliate link where you should totally use it to get your own. I wonder how much the drug company's paying him on top of the 15 grand that Paul Dacre stumped out. And the thing is, it's not just that the article was about something really quite boring. The quality of the writing was terrible as well. Like, people have said, I've not really read a great deal of Boris Johnson, I have to say. People have said in the past that his quality of writing is not great. And don't get me wrong, it doesn't need to be in a column piece. He's not writing a best-selling novel. It's a column piece. You know, the quality of the writing, it's the quality of the ideas that matters. But like, he's in there and he's talking about Julius Caesar. I thought, well, okay, he has to crowbar the classics in somehow, doesn't he? And how his spider senses jangled. Jangled? Spider senses? It was like someone trying to learn short story writing and making a great many missteps, as you would, in the hope that they finally improve. But this is Boris Johnson, is like nearly 60 years old. A man who never attempts to improve anything about himself. As I said, quite what Paul Dacre thought of it when it was presented to him. Presumably too late to do anything about it, because no doubt they just arranged this quite quickly, and it's like, write us something up. Oh, I'll knock something up tomorrow, no worries, no problem. We're going to publish it the day after, and they all committed to it. You know, but I don't think Dacre, when he was presented with it, thought to himself, great, this is going to sell enough extra copies to pay for the £15,000 I shelled out for this masterpiece alone. You know, it's often said that everyone who gets close to Johnson ends up suffering. Dacre, whom Johnson tried and failed to crowbar into the House of Lords twice, is now left wondering what he's done in giving Johnson all this money when he's trying to make cost savings at the Mail because it's going very badly. You know, so, I mean, he's given Boris Johnson however many hundreds of £1,000s, clearly to write whatever occurs to him while he's sat on the bog once a week. And yet people just don't seem to learn. Johnson not only failed to get Dacre a peerage, you know, consider that Johnson managed to force the House of Lords to take the son of a Russian spy against robust resistance from the Appointments Committee. They did not think it was a good idea. The Secret Services did not think it was a good idea. Boris Johnson still managed to ram it through. I'm not sure what to conclude from that. Is Paul Dacre even more of a threat to our democracy than a Putin oligarch? Or was Johnson just not putting in that much effort for Dacre? But it seems that nobody learns the lesson that to get close to Johnson is to be consumed by his ego. You know, Boris Johnson's already destroyed the UK's international standing, our capacity to meet the challenges of the current and future economic problems with Brexit. He has shat on parliamentary standards. He is now setting fire to the party, which made him such an important figure in the first place. Without that, he'd still be like telling tawdry gags on Have I Got News For You? You know, and now he's raging at them just because they've called time on his antics. And now he's about to destroy the Daily Mail. Endlessly hilarious how these idiots never learn. You know, that they want to team up with Boris Johnson. To do that is to want to be screwed by Boris Johnson. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships, and until next time, I'll see you later.